this video, we will write our first code in Python. It will include printing messages on the screen with code, getting introduced to data types in Python, and using mathematical operators. So this is PyCharm. I changed the user interface a little bit for the video quality purposes, but don't worry about it. Other than the colors, everything is the same. So what is PyCharm? PyCharm is an integrated development editor for Python, and it's very comfortable to work with. I encourage you to open it in your device and follow along everything I'm doing. Play around the code. So we're gonna start with this. We will explore other ways to write Python code in, but for now, let's stick to PyCharm Community Edition. Now, our Python file is called main by default, but let's give it a better name. Let's go to File right here, click Save As, and let's call it My First Python Project. Click OK. And we can close this. Now, let's say we want to write Hello Data World. We want Python to print it on the screen. Hello Data World. But you see these red lines right here? This means that Python doesn't understand what we want to do. The way we would make Python print Hello Data World on the screen is the following. We write print, then open parentheses, then open quotation marks, then close the quotation marks after the message so that the message is in between the quotation marks. It's pretty logical. And after that, we close the parentheses so that this whole thing is inside this print. So that should be making sense. Now, we still need to execute this code. So we go to run right here, and also again run here, and click My First Python Project. Great, we got our output right here. Now, so what happened was that the code was run, and we saw the output of our code that was produced right here. So this space is preserved for the output that we're going to generate with the code, and also for any error or warning messages as well. This line right here, process finished with exit code 0, you can think of it as there were no such errors in the code that would make it unrunnable. But more about that later. And you can ignore this line completely for now. It's just the path of our Python file. Now let's create and print some numbers. Let's say x equals 5. Print x. Here, great. But there's not much point in having just one variable and printing it. So I'm gonna delete this print here, and I'm gonna add other numbers. Let's say y equals 10, and let's say z equals x plus y. Now let's print z. 15, great, but wouldn't it be better if we wrote 5 plus 10 equals 15? I think that would be better. So instead of writing z here, I'm gonna write 5 plus 10 equals 15. And there are some ways to do it. Like one of the ways would be to write it exactly the way we wrote, like we printed Hello Data World, for example, like this. 5 plus 10 equals 15. And if we executed it, this would work. Here it works fine. But the problem with it is that every time we change one of the summons, let's say 5, let's say we change this number to 4. Now we would have to change this as well, because 4 plus 10 does not equal 15. We would have to change to 14. So every time I change this number, the same would be needed to be done. So how do we make Python do it for us? How do we automate it? The smarter way to print this would be like this. Delete this completely and write x, then comma. You can do the space separation here for more better readability. Then we're gonna write plus in quotation marks, comma again, y, again the same thing, equals z. Now let's see what it's gonna write. It writes exactly the same thing, but now if we change x to 4, let's say 4, the result gets automatically updated. If we change y to 15, again, y got updated, z got updated. So this is a smart way to do it. Now, you may have noticed that I ran the code without explicitly going here the way I showed you before. That's because I use shortcuts. The shortcuts are basically what you can press on your keyboard in order to execute some commands. And in my case, the shortcut for run command is here, Control-Shift-F10. This means that you press Control, you're holding it, press Shift, holding it, press F10, and it's gonna run the code. Now, your shortcuts might be different from mine. You just have to go here and check it. Exactly right here where I'm showing you. And I recommend and I heavily suggest you that you start getting used to using them, because it speeds up your work quite a bit, and it makes you very efficient, saves you a lot of time. You can also customize them and make it even more comfortable for you. Moving on, we added 2 numbers here. But Python lets us use other mathematical operators as well, other than just addition, such as multiplication, division, or difference. Since we're going to be data analysts, we will have to sometimes calculate the average of several numbers. There are more convenient ways to do it in Python, but for now let's try to implement it using mathematical operators. Let's calculate the average of x and y. Well, this should be x plus y together, like they're together, divided by 2. And let's print it. But before I actually execute this code, I want to tell you about one more thing that's very important, and it's called commenting. If you write the number sign, the hash, then you can write whatever you want on that line, but you're not gonna get any error messages like we did before. That's because anything after this hash line is considered a comment for you or another human being to understand. So let's say that you return to this program a long time later and you don't exactly remember what you did here, but if you had the command left here, this automatically adjusts z when x or y changes. You could read this command here and save yourself some time and energy. Now, we don't get any error messages either, because everything that's written after this hash sign gets ignored by the compiler and the interpreter. But the commands are also used for temporarily getting rid of part of the code. For example, we already saw that we printed hello data world, and we don't want to see it again and again here. We don't want to overcrowd this space. So I'm just going to comment it out, and I'm going to comment out this one completely as well. And we're going to see if we correctly calculated the average. See, only the average getting printed here. Great, this is actually correct. And we could calculate the average of more numbers as well. Let's say we got another number here which is called k, and it equals 20, or let's say minus 20, and we are adding k here. This time we have to divide by 3, and we execute, and there we got the new average. This is nice, but nobody uses coding for calculating the average of just 3 numbers, right? Let's have many numbers together. The syntax for it is the following. I'm just making up some numbers here that we're gonna calculate the average of later. You can make up your own numbers, just make sure to put like a lot of them so that it's gonna be hard to calculate the average by hand. And also one more thing you should make sure of is that it should begin with the square brackets, like open square brackets here, and then with the closing square bracket. And the entries should be comma separated. Now this is called Python list, and we're going to learn more about it in the upcoming videos. And each entry here is separated by a comma. So this is one number, this is another one, this is another one, and so on. Now let's store it in a variable. Let's call it nums. Equals this, and we want to calculate the average of nums of these numbers. The way we do it, like we could do it the same way as we did here, but the problem with that is obvious. Like we don't want to write so much, so we're gonna use something called statistics. We're gonna import statistics. We're also gonna learn more about this in the upcoming videos. For now, just think of it as a black box that does statistical operations for us. So the way this happens is we feed it some input, we tell it what we want to do, and it feeds us the output. So for example, we want to calculate the nums average, right? We're gonna say statistics. So we're calling, hey, statistics dot, and here it gives us the suggestions of what we might want. These are other statistical things that for now we don't care about. We just care about mean for now, and we click here twice and basically feed it nums, because we need to tell the mean of what. Like it needs to know what we're trying to calculate. So we're putting down means, and it's gonna know that we're trying to calculate this because means equals this. So now if we execute the code, it doesn't write anything because I forgot to print it. It just calculated it for itself. Now we're gonna say print and put it inside this parenthesis, and now execute it. And now we got the average of these numbers. So if we calculated it like this, or if we calculated it by hand, it would take us a lot of time, and you can see how comfortable this might get as the data grows larger and larger. So this was our first scratch of data analysis, and we're gonna do a lot more in the upcoming videos. And also in the next video, we're gonna analyze what was going on here, why we're writing all this quotation marks and everything. So see you in the next video.